A very common task you're going to carry out building web pages is navigation menus, creating nav menus. And up until some of the latest CSS3 layout modules, Flexbox, CSS Grids, you had to do a lot of things with Float. So I'm going to show you a traditional one, something that works going back to, well, the early versions of IE version 5, early days of CSS. So you could build menus, but the common way that most people did this was using a UL. So you created a list with anchors, and then it gave you elements that you could hook into to style in different ways and move things around. So what I have here is a nav menu built with list items, and then another one built without list items using Flexbox. So I'm going to show you the old CSS and the new CSS. So if you need backward compatibility, the way with list items, this works in both using Float, and then the one with the class FlexNav, here's the one I'm using, Flexbox, so I'll show you how to do that one as well. This is pretty much any browser that's been around for 4 years or less will support this just fine. Okay, let's take a look at the CSS. Inside here, this is the ones that start with list nav. This is the top row right up here. So the top row with the ULLIA, unordered list item anchor for each one. So we can hook into all those in the CSS. The containing element, list nav, that's my nav element. I set the background color on that, and I put a margin on the top and bottom just to create some space between the two of them. This isn't part of it. This is just to illustrate some of the principles. The UL itself, we set to overflow auto, and the reason that we do that is this. When you have elements that are floated, if you do not set a specific background height, or height on the element, let's do this. We'll say height is 3 rem. So you can see this is 3 rems tall. That height is what's letting us see the background color. The list items inside the UL are all going to be floated. As soon as you float something, the browser looks at it and says, okay, I'm not going to consider your height when I'm considering how big to build your parent. So it ignores the height of the list items, which is where the text is. If there's no height for the list item, then the UL just collapses up to the top. It's got no height itself, so you can't see the green background. Overflow auto, what that does is it will wrap around things that are floated as well, so it does consider the height. That way, if we get rid of the fixed height, we're getting the actual height. So overflow auto is how you get the background color to show up when you're floating your list items. This is just getting rid of the bullets. Width. Well, since I'm floating them, I have to figure out the exact width of each element. I've got 5 of them. 100% of my parent divided by 5 gives me 20% for each one of them. That's how I'm spacing them evenly across here. The anchor itself, color, font weight, text decoration, nothing special there. It's just these last two properties that we have to look at. Display block means that the anchor is going to fill from side to side of the list item. And that way, you can see I'm not on the text itself, but I get the little hand icon showing up for my cursor, and the hover effects do work. That's because the anchor has the display block property set on it. So it fills the entire list item. And then text align center puts it in the middle of this whole area. So the link is going to work anywhere inside there. And that's it. And then I've got a hover color, which not part of the layout, just something that we have there. So that's the old traditional way of doing it. The new way, in the HTML, I have a nav and then the anchor tags, and that's it. So my nav element, I set the same background color and margin as I did up above. The new things are these two lines. So I set it to display flex. The nav element now understands that it's a Flexbox element. Justify content, I want to space it evenly with spaces on the outside as well as between all the elements. So I get a full space, and then a half space and a half space. That's what space around gives me. We can actually, if I do space around, that gives me a 0.5 and then 1, 1, 1.5. If we did space between on these elements, I get 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, like that. One new one that you will have in some browsers, which is called space evenly. And that will create the spaces like this. I think I'm 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'm missing 1 inside of each of these. There we are. So this is what you get for these properties for justify content. We want the space around, we want the half space on either side, and then spaced out like that. So 2 properties on the parent, and then the only other thing inside of here are the anchor tags. For the anchor tags, well, it's just the same properties that we were using up above. Inside of here, font weight, color, font weight, text decoration, text align. The only one we don't have is the display block. Now, I can't put display block in here and have that work because we're using Flexbox and we're using this space around property to control the positioning of the elements. So I'm going to add a background here just to illustrate what I'm talking about. So let's put a background color, make it partially transparent as well. So 0% saturation, 100%, we'll make it white, and then we'll put it at 50%. Okay, so we have here backgrounds for each one of them. I'll make it a little bit brighter so it's easier for you to see there. So you can see that going on either side doesn't work the way that the display block did. Now, display block is not going to have the effect that we want here to stretch these out. What we need to do is we need to change how Flexbox lets these things grow. So we'll come in here and we're going to set the flex wrap property to no wrap, telling it absolutely do not go to the next line. Make everything fit within this one line. Then we'll come down into here and then we'll look at the there's the flex property, which is a shortcut for the flex basis and the grow and the shrink properties, those 3 things. So we'll leave it at flex, and I'm going to set the basis to 100% and then let them grow to 1, well, grow 1, shrink 1. So they will evenly, when they expand or shrink, that ability is going to be evenly spaced out between all of them. They will all grow and shrink the same amounts, and by default we want them to be 100% of the width. So this is going to be 100% of the width available. All 5 of them have to fit because we've said there's no wrap allowed, so it's forcing them to fit with this one property. So this is really our replacement for the display block property that we were using in the original one. And that's it. So I can comment out I don't need this background anymore. But now if I come over in here, you can see that without touching the text, I get the same effect that I was getting over here. And that is creating navigation menus with UL-LI and the old fallback using CSS Float, and the new version where we can just leave the UL and LI off quite easily and make it work with Flexbox. So I'll leave this as a code gist in the description for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. If you found it useful, please share it. And as always, thanks for watching.